Welcome to EV Loop, powered by Carloop. I'm Adrian Maidment.
And I'm Riz.
And in this episode, we are looking at new brands for Australia. There's a big digger that's an EV, more charger news, and of course, chart of the week. Hi Riz.
Hey Adrian, good to be on. It's our 6th episode.
Yes, episode 6. Lucky for some. Have you had a busy week? Busy week, Riz?
Yeah, pretty busy. Got to see some new electric cars. Keep an eye on what's going on in the industry. That's what we're here to talk about. And yeah, if you're into more of this type of content, please like, subscribe, and give us feedback on what you think and what else you want to see on our podcast and on YouTube.
That's very good, Riz. That's very good. That good bit of sell there. And speaking of selling, new to the market in Australia, we're talking vans first up. The Verizon
Supervan.
Oh yeah, the Supervan. It's a Supervan.
Not to be confused with the Superman. It's the Supervan, and it's here. It's had its ADR approvals this last week or so, and it appears it'll be coming in 2 battery packs, and it'll be sort of the first of its kind, where each battery pack comes with 10 variants, so different lengths, heights, cargo space, but really focused towards accelerating the electrified van fleet in Australia.
Yeah, and it's kind of a new brand, but it's also one of from the Geely stable of brands, isn't it?
Well, that's right. So that Supervan horse has been let loose through the stables of Geely, which owns Polestar, Volvo Cars, Zeekr, Lotus, and multiple other brands. And this is sort of their light commercial vehicle division. While I sort of, researching that particular product, I learned that Verizon operates battery swap stations, charging infrastructure, a whole lot of things in the commercial space. So they really know what it takes to get proper electric van vehicles out onto the road, and it's heading to Australia and possibly to New Zealand.
Yeah, it looks quite stylish for a van, so that's probably going to go pretty well.
Yeah, they're already taking pre-orders of it in Europe, so yeah, they've got big ambitions with this one.
And then keeping away from cars, let's talk about big diggers and an electric digger. BHP have got a big digger.
Look, everything needs to be electrified, and I think mining's sort of the right space for this. Mine sites sort of generally operate off-grid in many ways. They generate their own power, and if they're doing it through renewable sources, they've got plenty of it to be able to power large equipment that they use on site. Less fumes on site, whole lot of other advantages environmentally, safety-wise as well. So the more of these machines that can get out there that can be fully electrified, the better it would be for the sector, but also for emissions that go into digging up these raw materials for things like, electric vehicles as an example.
And they're the second brand apparently from Fortescue. Fortescue?
Yeah, Fortescue, big in WA for iron ore mining. And they seem to have quite a few initiatives. And I think as we move forward, a lot of these are ASX listed companies, so they have requirements on ESG and showcasing that they're reducing their emissions. So many more investments along those lines to reduce any carbon emissions within their operations. So watch this space.
Yes, it says the Fortescue, they've got a net zero target for 2030, so that's fast approaching. And we'll look at some vehicles now. Let's talk Tesla again. The Tesla Cybertruck spotting.
Yes.
New state, same Cybertruck.
The same Cybertruck. We weren't as early as those that got to see it in New Zealand when it was doing winter testing last year. But since April, the Cybertruck's been doing a bit of a roadshow around Australia. Started off in Sydney, then Canberra, Melbourne, was in Tassie recently. So Dr. Boat got to Tassie, Dr. Boat back again. And this time around, it's on the far west side. So it's now in Western Australia, heading to Perth.
So watch out, Perth. And staying in Australia, with charger news, Ampol have apparently missed their get new charger target.
That one's a bit interesting. It blows my mind in many ways that how an organization that is so energy driven. They've had to change. They had to rebrand to become Ampol over the last couple of years, and they're really about delivering energy where Australians need it. They've missed this by a big shot. And they're sort of blaming the fact that they can't get electricity by the distributors to be sent to sites where they need it and all the rest of it, while Tesla and others seems to be able to get the power and everything that they need to keep opening new sites. So very disappointing, but at the same time, they've apparently received more funding to roll out more. So you don't hit your targets, we give you more money. So anyway, time will tell, but yeah, Ampol, if others in the industry are also watching, we have to make sure we get more chargers in the ground sooner, because regardless of whether we like it or not, electric vehicles are coming, and with what we'll shortly talk about in this episode, there'll be thousands more buyers looking at getting into one in the coming months, so infrastructure needs to be there.
I'd like more money for missing my targets. That'd be awesome.
That's right.
Now let's go to international news and another sort of a swirl away from EV-ness, but hybridness. Ford have decided to focus on the hybrids in their bigger cars, the SUVs.
It's they had some big plans to have 3-row large electric SUVs, sort of like, I guess, the Kia EV9 sized vehicles that were in the product lineup to be launched, and now they're sort of moving back and saying no, they don't want electric, people want hybrids, so we're going to do hybrids. Interesting timing for this sort of announcement, but I guess if they don't do it, we know there's plenty of other brands, particularly those from China, that are saying, hey, there's a market here, we know how to build large vehicles, yeah, that's a really strong entry point. BYD already has the Tang in multiple markets outside of China, including Europe. So, and I think I also saw one being tested in Canada. So, if they don't make them, BYD and others will, I guess. So, let's watch this space as well.
I guess they're also trying to cut down losing money, aren't they? Because they say they lose money on every EV they make.
It's a catch-22, isn't it? Yeah. If they don't make enough, they're going to lose more. And if they're saying they're not going to make them at all, then they're going to lose even more. So, yeah, short-term versus long-term.
Someone not worried about losing money is one of your sort of little brands, you like to focus on, is Xiaomi from China, who are now trying to get into the big leagues with, say, BYD and Tesla. So they're not worried about the losses at the moment. They've got big plans.
Xiaomi does. Earlier this year was the Beijing Auto Show, which over 800,000 people attended over 10 days. Xiaomi was the hottest thing. It really is. Their CEO is like a rock star in China, and them launching their electric car with, as a first go, has hit so many different performance targets and sort of comfort targets very well. And they're already up to a stage where they launched it in March. In April, they started deliveries. And I think by the end of this year, they will get over 100,000 vehicles delivered. That is huge from like a brand new manufacturer. So, yeah, Apple couldn't do it. Xiaomi is doing it. And they also have...
I was going to say they're known for their phones and mainly lots of other products, aren't they? So
that's right. And I think the focus for them is, let's get as many of these vehicles on the road. Let's learn from our user feedback. And then I think their bigger plans are for SUVs next year. So they're not scared to lose money this year. But I think in the next 2 to 3 years' time, Xiaomi would be one of the bigger, well-known brands in the automotive industry globally.
And sticking to Chinese brands doing well, BYD has, this is for global figures, passed Nissan and Honda for April-June vehicle sales.
It's happening, and I think it's the trend is only going one way. So I think BYD will surpass a few other legacy automakers in 2024 and beyond that to probably become the top 10 best-selling manufacturers, if not already, in the next couple of years.
And apparently there's only one Japanese brand in that top 10 now. So.
Oh, Toyota?
Toyota. Hanging in there. And now let's move on to the exciting times of chart of the week. We're looking at used car sales this chart. And it sort of ties into the new lower priced Tesla pricing of sub 30,000.
It's happened, Adrian. We've been waiting for this time for a while now, where, people, one of the bigger arguments against EVs is that they're expensive. Yes, they are. It's taken a while for a healthy used electric car market to form, and this chart sort of illustrates that as the number of listings of these vehicles goes up, and it's reached a record high of over 650 Model 3s up for sale in Australia, we're starting to see prices of some of those advertised vehicles drop below 30,000. 29,990 for two of them, both located in Queensland. And yes, the cars have a few kilometers on it, under 120,000 for both of them. But relatively new car, 2020 model cars, 3-4 years old. I think it's, the prices are really starting to come down now. So it makes it accessible for many more people to think about, who might have been on the fence of getting an electric car, can get a relatively recent quality electric car for under 30,000, and it's only heading in one direction.
Okay, Riz, any cars you've been in this week? Or EVs, I guess. Any EV driving or looking at?
Yeah, so this week's been an interesting one. I surprisingly got to see the Cupra Tavascan. Only announced last month in Australia that it was coming later this year. And Cupra in Australia has these garages. They don't call them dealerships or showrooms or experience centers. They call them garages. So in the Richmond garage in Melbourne, I popped in thanks to a tip-off by one of our listeners of this podcast. It happened to be there. So popped in, had a look. It looks quite nice in person. It was a left-hand drive model. And it feels a little bit like the Cupra Born, which was launched nearly 2 years ago now in Australia. But it has a new infotainment screen, which is a little bit bigger, a little bit Model 3-like. So Volkswagen's learning, which is the owner of Cupra, and this would be the first model with that particular screen here in Australia as it launches in Q4. Another interesting point about Cupra is this would be the first, electric SUV from the brand, but not only that, it will also be the first Cupra, as far as I know, to be built and manufactured in China for the Australian market. So interesting times ahead as the Volkswagen Group focuses more and more manufacturing and engineering efforts in China, supplying to global markets like ours in Australia.
And I've seen a couple of photos of real high class, the Rolls-Royce Spectre. Did you get one of those while you?
I had to see one in person. And I ended up on the very same road with the Cupra garage. There is a Rolls-Royce dealership. And on the first floor, you can't see anything. You just see some Aston Martins and a couple of other things. But then check in with the receptionist, and they said, yes, Rolls-Royces are on level 1. So do
you have an invitation?
You need an invitation, or you create your invitation. I went up and had a look, and they not only had 1, 2, but 3 Rolls-Royce electric Spectres. Ooh. One of them was sold to a customer because it has a sold sign on it, and there were 2 more there. The most expensive electric car you can buy on the Australian market. And one of them I saw a bit of a sticker price of just over $1 million Australian dollars. Cool to see in person, but haven't seen one being driven around the country. Watch this space as well. Very expensive cars that I got to just look at, not sit in. But Adrian, as I understand, you were in one a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I had a look in one. I didn't drive it because I was too terrified for a start. But it was lovely. And every review, I have watched a few YouTube videos of it, and everyone driving them seems to think it's fantastic. So something to aspire to.
That's all we need to know.
Yeah, aspire to. And what have you got coming up this week, Riz? Out and about?
Yeah, so this coming week, there's a couple of things happening. We might get a chance to look at some of the new products coming into the Australian market. 3 new EVs Actually, no, 4. There's 3 that I'm certainly going to try and see in person and share more on the next episode. And there's also a sneak preview of a 4th electric car. This particular car, there hasn't been anything like this in our market. So a lot for our listeners and viewers to look forward to in the next episode of EV Loop. So like and subscribe if you want to tune into that one and find out what those vehicles are, because they're all coming to Australia.
Some good teasing there, Riz. And any final thoughts to leave us with this? Any final thoughts to leave us with this week?
Yeah, so as we're sort of seeing, a healthy used electric market is starting to form, which means many more people will have access to quality, cleaner electric cars. We want to see that sort of trend continue to develop. And I think it will, as there's more competition coming into the space, which means more people have an opportunity to consider a car that is, obviously electrified rather than thinking about another ICE vehicle. So that's quite important to see develop. But at the same time, so many new models are on the horizon. So yeah, watch this space.
Okay, Riz, thanks very much, and we'll see you again next week.
See you then.